Carl Jung at 70 years old said something that changed everything we thought we knew about aging. He said, "The body that ages is the temple where the soul finally finds its true home." And it was with this profound philosophy that he developed a simple 5-minute morning routine that literally saved his joints from chronic stiffness and pain. What Jung discovered in his 70s wasn't just about physical health. It was about understanding that our aging body isn't betraying us. It's actually trying to communicate with us in ways we've never learned to listen, from wherever you're watching this today. I want you to leave a comment below and tell me your biggest physical challenge right now. Are you dealing with morning stiffness, joint pain that makes simple tasks difficult, that feeling of your body just not responding the way it used to? Because what I'm about to share with you isn't just theory, it's a practical approach that Jung himself used every single day after turning 70, and it's something you can start implementing immediately. No matter what your current physical condition might be, there's something heartbreaking about watching someone you love struggle to get out of bed in the morning. Maybe that someone is you. Maybe you wake up and your knees ache before your feet even hit the floor. Maybe your shoulders feel like they've been locked in position all night, and those first few steps feel like you're walking through molasses. Maybe you started avoiding activities you once loved because your body just doesn't feel reliable anymore. If any of this sounds familiar, I want you to know that you're not alone, and more importantly, you're not powerless. Jung understood something that most people miss entirely about the aging process. He realized that what we call getting old is actually our body's way of demanding that we finally pay attention to the wisdom it's been trying to share with us for decades. Think about it. When you were younger, you could ignore your body's signals. You could push through pain, skip meals, stay up late, and your body would just adapt. But now, your body is saying, "Hey, we need to work together here. We need to listen to each other." This isn't your body failing you. This is your body inviting you into a deeper relationship with yourself. Jung called this the afternoon of life, and he believed it was actually the most important and potentially fulfilling period of human existence. But here's the thing. And this is crucial. Jung didn't just philosophize about aging gracefully. He lived it. He was active, mentally sharp, and physically capable well into his 80s. And he attributed much of this to a very specific approach he developed for connecting with his body in a completely new way. When Jung was in his 70s, he began experiencing what he called the body's morning conversation. Every morning, he would wake up, and instead of immediately getting frustrated with stiffness or pain, he would actually engage in what he termed somatic dialogue. He would literally talk to his body, ask it what it needed, and then respond with specific, gentle movements and natural remedies that addressed exactly what his body was telling him. Now, I know this might sound unusual, but stay with me because the results Jung achieved with this approach were remarkable. Not only did he maintain his mobility and reduce his joint pain significantly, but he also discovered that this morning routine became a gateway to mental clarity, emotional balance, and what he described as a sense of integrated wholeness that he had never experienced in his younger years. The beautiful thing about Jung's approach is that it's not about fighting aging or trying to turn back the clock. It's about embracing this stage of life as an opportunity for deeper wisdom and actually better health than you might have had in your 40s or 50s. Jung believed that many of the health challenges we face after 60 are actually our psyche's way of calling us to a more conscious, more intentional way of living. Here's what Jung discovered. When we approach our aging body with curiosity instead of frustration, with compassion instead of criticism, and with practical action instead of resignation, our body responds in ways that can genuinely surprise us. He found that his daily 5-minute routine didn't just help his joints. It improved his sleep, his digestion, his mental clarity, and even his relationships with other people. I want you to imagine for a moment what it would feel like to wake up tomorrow morning and instead of that immediate hit of stiffness and discomfort, you felt a sense of anticipation. What if instead of dreading how your body might feel today, you actually looked forward to connecting with it? What if your morning routine became something that energized you rather than something you had to? And Jung's morning routine consisted of 4 specific elements that he practiced every single day, and 3 natural anti-inflammatory remedies that he incorporated into his daily life. But before we dive into the specifics, I want you to understand the mindset shift that made all the difference for him. Jung stopped seeing his body as something that was happening to him and started seeing it as something he was partnering with. Share with me in the comments below, do you also feel like your body is stiffer in the morning? Have you noticed that simple activities that used to be effortless now require more thought and preparation? Because I want you to know that acknowledging these changes isn't giving up or getting in. It's actually the first step toward reclaiming your physical vitality in a way that honors where you are right now, while opening up possibilities you might not have imagined. What Jung understood, and what changed everything for him, was that the body after 60 isn't trying to slow us down. It's trying to teach us a more sustainable, more conscious way of moving through the world. And when we learn to listen to these lessons, when we learn to respond with the right combination of mental awareness and physical care, something remarkable happens. We don't just manage our aging body, we actually optimize it. The first thing Jung taught himself to do every morning was something he called the body dialogue. And this single practice transformed not just his physical comfort, but his entire relationship with aging. When Jung would wake up, before he even sat up in bed, he would take a moment to mentally scan his body and actually ask it questions. He would think, "Good morning, body. What do you need from me today? Where are you holding tension? What would help you feel more fluid and comfortable now?" I know this might sound a bit unconventional, but Jung was a psychiatrist who understood that the mind and body are not separate entities. He knew that our physical symptoms often carry emotional and psychological information, and that by creating this conscious dialogue, he could address both the physical discomfort and the underlying patterns that were contributing to it. Here's how Jung would begin his morning routine, and this is something you can start doing immediately. Still lying in bed, he would gently place one hand on his chest and one hand on his abdomen, and he would take 3 slow, deliberate breaths with each breath. He would consciously send appreciation to his body for carrying him through another night of rest and restoration. He would literally think, "Thank you for healing while I slept. Thank you for continuing to serve me faithfully." Then, and this is where it gets really interesting, Jung would begin what he called the spinal awakening. Still lying down, he would very slowly and gently begin to move his spine, starting from the very top. He would gently turn his head from side to side, feeling for any areas of tightness or restriction. He wouldn't force anything. He would simply move with curiosity, asking his body, "What feels good here? What movement wants to happen?" Jung discovered that when he approached his body this way, with genuine curiosity rather than frustration, his body would actually guide him toward the movements it needed most. Some mornings his neck wanted gentle circles, other mornings it wanted slow, deliberate stretches to one side or the other. By listening rather than imposing rigid routine, Jung found that his body became more responsive and more cooperative. After awakening his neck and upper spine, Jung would slowly work his way down. He would gently arch and flatten his lower back while still lying down, feeling for areas that felt compressed or tight from sleep. He would bring his knees toward his chest one at a time, not to achieve any particular stretch, but simply to create movement and circulation in his hip joints and lower back. The key thing Jung emphasized was that this wasn't exercise in the traditional sense. This was communication. He was having a conversation with his body, and his body was responding by showing him exactly what it needed. Jung found that this approach was far more effective than any rigid stretching routine because it was personalized to his body's needs on any given day. After this gentle awakening sequence, which took about 2 minutes, Jung would slowly sit up on the edge of his bed and continue his dialogue. He would place his feet flat on the floor and simply sit for a moment, feeling the connection between his body and the earth. He would take a few more conscious breaths and mentally prepare for the day ahead, but not in a rushed or anxious way. Instead, he would set an intention to move through his day with awareness and respect for his body's needs. Now, the second element of Jung's routine was what he called the walking meditation. And this is where his approach becomes really powerful. For joint health, Jung would put on comfortable shoes and step outside, even if it was just onto a small balcony or into a garden. He understood that connecting with nature, even briefly, had profound effects on both physical and mental well-being. But Jung's walking wasn't about covering distance or getting exercise in the conventional sense. Instead, he would take exactly 10 conscious steps, and with each step, he would focus on a different aspect of the walking process. Step 1. He would focus on how his foot felt as it made contact with the ground. Step 2. He would notice how his weight shifted from one leg to the other. Step 3. He would pay attention to how his arms naturally swung at his sides. Jung found that this incredibly slow, mindful approach to walking had several benefits. First, it helped him identify any imbalances or compensations his body was making due to stiffness or pain. If his right knee was bothering him, he would notice that he was subtly shifting his weight or changing his gait pattern. By becoming aware of these adaptations, he could make conscious adjustments that prevented the development of secondary problems. Second, this mindful walking helped Jung establish what he called confident movement patterns. Many people over 60 begin to move tentatively, almost expecting their body to fail them or cause pain. This tentative movement actually creates more tension and stiffness. By focusing intently on each step, Jung was retraining his nervous system to move with confidence and fluidity. Third, and this was perhaps most important to Jung, this walking meditation connected him with what he called the rhythm of life itself. He felt that by synchronizing his movement with conscious breathing and awareness, he was participating in a larger pattern of harmony that extended beyond his individual body. After his 10 conscious steps, Jung would stand still for a moment and take 3 more deep breaths, this time focusing on gratitude. He would think about the simple miracle of being able to stand, to walk, to breathe freely. He found that this gratitude practice had a profound effect on his overall sense of well-being and actually seemed to reduce his perception of pain and discomfort. Jung wrote in his personal journals that this combination of body dialogue and walking meditation created what he described as a sense of embodied presence that stayed with him throughout the day. He felt more connected to his physical self, more aware of his needs and limits, and paradoxically, more capable and confident in his movements. Try this for 7 days and come back to tell us about your results in the comments below. Jung believed that consistency was more important than perfection. So even if you can only manage a few minutes, or if you need to adapt the movements to your current abilities, the key is to approach your body with this spirit of curious dialogue, rather than frustrated demand. What Jung discovered, and what he wants you to discover too, is that your body after 60 isn't less capable than it was before. It's differently capable, and when you learn to work with these differences rather than against them, you might find that you feel more comfortable and confident in your body than you have in years. The third element of Jung's morning routine was based on something he observed in nature that completely changed how he thought about movement and healing. Jung was fascinated by circles and circular patterns, which he saw everywhere in the natural world. From the cycles of seasons to the movement of planets to the rings that form when you drop a stone in still water, he believed that circular movement was the most natural and healing form of motion for the human body. Especially as we age, Jung developed what he called the circle practice, and it became one of the most effective parts of his daily routine for maintaining joint mobility and reducing stiffness. But this wasn't just physical exercise for Jung. He understood circles as symbols of wholeness and completion, and he felt that by incorporating circular movements into his daily routine, he was actually healing and integrating different aspects of himself. Here's exactly how Jung would practice his circular movements, and remember, this entire sequence took less than 1 minute, but had effects that lasted throughout his day. After completing his walking meditation, Jung would stand with his feet shoulder-width apart and begin with his shoulders. He would lift his shoulders up toward his ears, then roll them back, then down, then forward, creating a smooth circular motion. But Jung didn't just move his shoulders mechanically. As he created these circles, he would visualize tension and stiffness flowing out of his shoulder joints like water draining from a basin. Jung would complete 5 circles in one direction, then reverse and complete 5 circles in the opposite direction. He found that this simple movement not only relieved the tension he often carried in his shoulders and neck, but it also seemed to create a sense of energetic flow throughout his entire upper body. Jung wrote that after doing his shoulder circles, he felt like his arms and hands were more alive and responsive. Next, Jung would move to his hips. And this is where his circular practice became particularly beneficial for joint health. He would place his hands on his hips and begin to move his pelvis in slow, deliberate circles. Again, 5 circles in one direction, then 5 in the reverse direction. Jung discovered that this hip circle practice was incredibly effective for maintaining mobility in his lower back and hip joints, areas that tend to become particularly stiff and problematic as we age. But what made Jung's approach unique was the mental component he added to these physical circles. As he moved his hips in circles, he would imagine that he was stirring up stagnant energy in his core, creating movement and vitality in areas that had become stuck or sluggish. Jung believed that many of the aches and pains we experience as we age are actually the result of what he called energetic stagnation, and that conscious circular movement could restore natural flow and vitality. Jung would complete his circle practice by gently rolling his ankles, first in one direction, then the other. He understood that our feet and ankles carry us through every day of our lives, and he wanted to honor and care for these hard-working joints as he moved his ankles in circles. Jung would send gratitude to his feet for their faithful service, and set an intention to walk through his day with awareness and appreciation. The entire circular movement sequence took Jung less than a minute to complete, but he considered it one of the most important parts of his day. He found that these simple movements not only kept his joints mobile and comfortable, but they also created what he described as a sense of internal harmony that influenced his mood, his thinking, and his interactions with other people. Now, the fourth element of Jung's routine involved what he called nature's pharmacy. And this is where Jung's understanding of the mind-body connection really showed its practical power. Jung believed that nature provided everything we needed for health and healing, but that we had to be intentional and informed about how to use these natural remedies effectively. Jung incorporated 3 specific natural anti-inflammatory compounds into his daily routine, and he chose these not just for their physical benefits, but because he felt they connected him with ancient wisdom traditions that understood healing as a holistic process involving body, mind, and spirit. The first was turmeric, which Jung would take every morning mixed with a small amount of warm water and a pinch of black pepper. Jung knew that curcumin, the active compound in turmeric, was one of nature's most powerful anti-inflammatory agents. But he also appreciated turmeric's golden color and its historical use in spiritual and healing traditions. As he drank his turmeric mixture, Jung would visualize this golden healing energy flowing through his bloodstream, reducing inflammation and promoting healing throughout his body. Jung was meticulous about the way he prepared and consumed his turmeric. He understood that curcumin is not easily absorbed by the body on its own, so he always combined it with black pepper, which contains piperine, a compound that dramatically increases curcumin absorption. Jung would also sometimes add a small amount of healthy fat, like coconut oil, because curcumin is fat-soluble and absorbs better when consumed with fats. The second natural anti-inflammatory Jung used daily was fresh ginger, which he would either grate into his morning tea or chew on small pieces throughout the day. Jung appreciated ginger not just for its powerful anti-inflammatory properties, but also for its warming, energizing effect. He found that ginger helped him feel more vital and alert, especially on cold mornings when his joints felt particularly stiff. Jung would often combine his ginger with lemon and honey to create what he called his morning tonic. He felt that this combination not only supported his joint health, but also boosted his immune system and improved his digestion. Jung understood that inflammation in the digestive system could contribute to inflammation throughout the body, so he was intentional about supporting his digestive health as part of his overall joint care routine. The third component of Jung's natural anti-inflammatory protocol was high-quality fish oil, rich in omega-3 fatty acids. Jung took fish oil daily, but he was particular about the source and quality. He understood that not all fish oils are created equal, and he chose oils that were molecularly distilled to remove toxins and contaminants. Jung saw his fish oil supplementation as feeding his brain as well as his joints. He knew that omega-3 fatty acids were essential for cognitive function and mood regulation, and he felt that supporting his mental clarity and emotional balance was just as important as addressing physical inflammation. What made Jung's approach to these natural remedies so effective was the intentionality he brought to taking them, rather than just swallowing supplements mindlessly. Jung would take a moment with each one to acknowledge its healing properties and set an intention for how he wanted it to support his health and well-being. Try incorporating these natural anti-inflammatories into your routine for the next week and pay attention to how your body responds. Jung believed that healing was not something that happened to us, but something we actively participated in through conscious choices and intentional practices. Come back and share your experience in the comments below. Jung's approach wasn't just about reducing inflammation or improving joint mobility. It was about creating a daily practice that honored the wisdom of the aging body and supported not just physical health, but overall vitality and well-being. What Jung discovered through years of practicing this 5-minute morning routine was something that goes far beyond just managing joint pain or reducing stiffness. He discovered that when we approach our aging body with respect, curiosity, and intentional care, we unlock what he called the wisdom of the second half of life. Jung believed that many people spend the first half of their lives building and achieving, but the second half is when we have the opportunity to integrate everything we've learned and become truly who we are. Jung's morning routine wasn't just about physical health. It was about creating a daily practice that honored the profound transformation that happens when we move beyond middle age. Jung wrote that in his 70s and 80s. He felt more authentically himself than he ever had in his younger years. He attributed much of this to his daily practice of connecting consciously with his body and treating it as a partner in his ongoing development, rather than an obstacle to overcome. The beautiful thing about Jung's approach is that it acknowledges something most anti-aging advice completely misses. Jung wasn't trying to turn back the clock or pretend he was still young. Instead, he was embracing what he called the archaeology of the self. He understood that every limitation, every change in his body was actually information about his life journey, and that by listening to this information with compassion and wisdom, he could make choices that supported not just his physical comfort, but his overall sense of purpose and fulfillment. When Jung practiced his body dialogue each morning, when he took his mindful steps, when he moved in healing circles, and when he nourished his body with natural anti-inflammatories, he was engaging in what he called embodied individuation. This was Jung's term for the process of becoming fully who we are meant to be, and he believed that this process actually accelerated and deepened in the later decades of life. Jung often spoke about how surprised he was by the vitality and clarity he experienced in his 70s and 80s. He said that while his body required more attention and care than it had when he was younger, his mind felt sharper, his emotions more balanced, and his sense of purpose more clear than ever before. He attributed this not to luck or good genes, but to his daily practice of treating his aging process as a sacred journey rather than a decline to be endured. One of the most powerful aspects of Jung's approach was his understanding that physical health and psychological health are inseparable, especially as we age. Jung noticed that when he took care of his body with intention and respect, his mood improved, his relationships deepened, and his creative output actually increased. He wrote some of his most important work in his 70s and 80s, and he credited his morning routine with giving him the physical comfort and mental clarity to continue his contributions to the world. Jung also understood something that modern research is now confirming, that inflammation in the body is closely linked to depression, anxiety, and cognitive decline. By addressing inflammation through his natural remedies and gentle movement practices, Jung wasn't just taking care of his joints. He was supporting his mental health, his emotional resilience, and his cognitive function. But perhaps most importantly, Jung's morning routine gave him what he called a sense of agency in his aging process, rather than feeling like aging was something that was happening to him. Jung felt like he was an active participant in creating the kind of older adult he wanted to be. He wasn't just managing symptoms or trying to maintain what he had. He was actually cultivating new capacities and discovering aspects of himself that had been dormant during his younger, more externally focused years. Jung wrote that his morning routine became a form of daily renewal. Each day, through his conscious dialogue with his body, his mindful movement, and his intentional nourishment, he was essentially saying yes to life, yes to growth, and yes to the possibility that his best years could still be ahead of him. This is what I want for you too. I want you to see that the changes in your body after 60 aren't signs of decline. They're invitations to develop a more conscious, more intentional, more loving relationship with yourself. When you wake up tomorrow morning and feel that familiar stiffness, instead of immediately feeling frustrated or discouraged, I want you to remember Jung's approach. I want you to see that stiffness as your body asking for attention, care, and partnership. The 5-minute routine Jung developed, the body dialogue, the mindful walking, the circular movements, and the natural anti-inflammatories, these aren't just techniques for managing aging. They're tools for transformation. They're ways of turning what many people see as the most challenging period of life into what Jung called the most fruitful and fulfilling. Jung believed that in our youth, we're driven by external goals and expectations, but in the second half of life, we have the opportunity to be guided by internal wisdom and authentic purpose. His morning routine was designed to connect him with this internal guidance system every single day. As Jung once said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And he believed that this becoming doesn't stop at 60 or 70 or 80. In fact, Jung felt that the later decades of life offered unique opportunities for growth and self-discovery that simply aren't available to younger people. So as we conclude, I want to leave you with Jung's most powerful insight about aging and health. He said, "The afternoon of life must have a significance of its own and cannot be merely a pitiful appendage to life's morning. Your life after 60 isn't about holding on to what you used to be. It's about discovering who you're still becoming." If this message has brought hope and inspiration to your day, I want you to leave a heart emoji in the comments below. Share this video with someone who needs to hear Jung's wisdom about aging with vitality and purpose. Subscribe to join our community of people who believe that 60 can be the beginning of life's most beautiful chapter, not the end. Remember, Jung lived to be 85 years old, active and creative until the very end. His 5-minute morning routine was just one part of how he approached aging as an adventure rather than a defeat. Your experience, your wisdom, your journey matters. You're not just surviving your 60s, 70s, and beyond. You're creating them. One conscious choice, one mindful movement, one grateful breath at a time.